everyone very briefly introduce themselves. I think many of us already know each other, but just very briefly introduce yourself. And then we are going to then move to the important part where Rita is going to be introducing our two wonderful speakers. I'm Barbara Allan, past president of Executive Women, followed in the footsteps of a great leader, Fran Hathaway, many, many years ago, and had the great privilege of working with Rita. Rita and I were together when I was president, and I'm very happy that we have a chance to do this. Lisa Trout.
Needs to unmute.
I'm doing it. Okay, there it is. I'm Lisa Trout. I'm Barbara's neighbor, and I am a member on the advisory board of Osher Lifelong Learning at the Jupiter campus. And I'm very excited to be here. Climate change is one of my pet projects, so the book means a great deal to me, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Okay. Julia.
My goodness, I couldn't unmute myself there for a second. I panicked. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for everybody for coming today and for sharing this conversation with us. I feel very funny taking the floor before my mom. I could tear up right now. I have so much respect for this individual, and she is the reason why I think I can make a difference today. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have. I'm happy to tell you about the work that I currently am undertaking, and most of all, I'm really looking forward to talking with you about this book. Thank you for having us.
Perfect. Jessica.
Hi, Jessica Groover. Just really excited to be here, and I love discussing the climate and looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Okay. Judy. There you go.
So I have been a member of Executive Women for years. Only over the last 3 years, I kept up my membership, but I dropped out of everything that was going on here because of a number of issues that I needed to deal with in my life and in business and in whatever. And then recently I resigned, and I am very glad to be here and delighted to meet you all. Most of who I don't think I know, maybe 2 of you. So it's really nice to be here, and thank you. And oh, wait, and right. And climate change is something that I believe in and am afraid of. And I think it is that close. So thank you for being here.
I just got an email from Lisa Hurtis. She had a death in her family that just happened.
Oh, no. Oh my God.
And she's sorry that she's not here. So that those of us who know Lisa Hurtis, maybe drop her a note. I don't know any details, just a very brief email. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Gerto. I'm past president as well. I relocated to Tampa last summer, but I have still clients in West Palm Beach, so I'm back and forth. I have not been back since March because of COVID, but I don't feel like I'm that removed because of all the Zoom connections with this group and many other groups. So, you know, thankful for that. As far as climate change, my son and daughter-in-law have an electric car. They're keep telling me I don't have to worry about driving as I get older because I'll have a self-driving car. And so I've been listening to a lot of what they say because they are really, and my son's an engineer, so he has a really different lens on a lot of things. So it's been an interesting time, and I think the book really just reiterated a lot of the comments that they have been saying all along. So I found it really interesting and affirmative.
Okay, great. Rita.
Well, Barbara, you said you had the distinct honor of following Fran. I had the distinct honor of following you. And it's so easy to remember when I was president. It was 30 years ago because my son turned 30 last month. So, and I was big and pregnant when that happened. So I think all of you will see that you just have lifelong friends. It's such a great organization where you meet people who are just so inspirational, and I look forward to saying a little bit more about Fran and her daughter and hearing from them as experts. It's a delight to be here.
Fran, unmute.
There we go. I am so grateful for all of you being here and saying things about my book that really will help me write the next one. I'm also delighted to have Julia here because she's coming to us from New York. And she's really she talks about me being the inspiration. She is equally the inspiration for this book. And I'm looking forward to questions and answers that you have about anything in the book.
Terrific. Fran, what year were you president?
I think it was 97, maybe 97, 98. A long time ago.
Okay. Holly, wonderful Holly.
Hello, everyone. My name's Holly Finch, and I'm the Executive Director of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation. Been on board since October. It's just about a year now. And COVID's been interesting. This isn't exactly what I signed up for, but it's been a learning experience. And I'm just so pleased to be around such magnificent women and be able to support this book club and other events and just be a fly on the wall through it all. So thank you for having me as part of the group.
Okay, great. Pam.
Hey everybody, I'm Pam Payne. I started a new job 4 weeks ago, so this is my great diversion right here. I'm a past president of Executive Women. I've been a member for 21 years, and I am really looking forward to this. It's just something totally different in the last 4 weeks, so thank you.
Terrific. Penny.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Penny Redford. I'm the Climate Change and Resilience Manager for the City of West Palm Beach. And really, one of my dear friends, Charlotte, has invited me several times to events and is always after me to come and join y'all. And I'm always like, I put so much into my work, I don't know if there's anything left, but I appreciate so much being included, and I really am enjoying being able to look at climate change through someone else's eyes and other ways of, trying to address things, because it's something that I deal with every day. And, you can have your ups and downs about it. So thank you so much for the book and for letting me join.
We're happy you're here. Kathy.
Hello, everyone. Kathy McGuire. I was honored to be invited to be Vice President of Programs and Education for Executive Women. And my company, 3 Pillar Solutions, provides sustainability solutions for mostly the hospitality and tourism industry. My goal is to make change happen, doing work that matters for people who care. There's no sense, shouting out to naysayers. It's those of us like us who care about this type of work. And, like Penny, this is what I do for a living. And I'm really excited to be part of this book club. And thank you for the book. I really appreciate having that sent to me. Thank you.
Great to have you. I think Charlotte, you're next.
Okay, Charlotte Pelton. I've been a member of Executive Women since 1995, actually because of my friend Michelle Gerto, who recruited me to join right when I became president of my company. I am a past president, and I love this organization. It brings great women together to do really important things. And when I saw the note and that it was Fran Hathaway, I knew for sure that this is something I wanted to be involved with. And I immediately thought of my neighbor Penny saying, this is the one that's going to hook her. So anyway, glad to be here and can't wait to hear the conversation tonight.
Terrific. Okay, Rita, will you now spend a second and introduce, we've already done our introductions, but provide a little bit more insight about our wonderful authors, both Fran and Julia. Unmute, Rita.
Unmute. So each year, Executive Women has a past president's luncheon, and Barbara and Fran and I were sitting next to each other, and both of us were lucky enough to read Fran's 2 of her books, and we loved them. They were just beautifully written. And for those of you that didn't know Fran, when she was with the Post, she was a highly respected editorial board member, one of the top writers. I mean, just the top journalists. I mean, everybody knew Fran, and Fran had some of the best programs Executive Women ever put on race relations and so on. So anyway, we started chatting, and she said, I'm really got this interest in climate change, and my daughter's an expert in this. And so we're writing this book. So we started talking, we said, maybe we should have a book club. So it all started at the Executive Women Luncheon, Holly, so thank you. So we said, maybe that could be a first time for Executive Women. You have membership, Trudy was saying, that you wanted to promote. So lo and behold, both Barbara and I read the book and thought, wow, that's really intriguing, and it's so timely. And there's hardly a day that goes by right now where somebody's not talking about it. So I just very briefly, you heard, Fran is so accomplished, so respected, obviously past president, and just, I can't say enough about how the impact she's had on my life. And I just learned so much from her and her leadership, and watching her and respecting her through all these years. I haven't met Julia. I'm so pleased to meet you. And I could see the love you both have for each other and the respect. Julia, I know, is a lifelong a woman dedicated to the environment, PhD in environmental studies. And so I think the 2 of them together have this magic that they've been able to put together by writing this book. So let me just turn it over to Fran, and Fran, you can elaborate some more, as well as Julia, and tell us a little bit about the book and what they need to know. I would like to encourage you to use chat. If you want to chat with anybody personally, obviously can, but I'm going to monitor it, as well as Barbara, and that way if there are questions, if something pops into your head, we'll pause and I'll ask the authors to comment on any particular question that you have. So the whole intent today is to lay the groundwork to get the team, or not the team, the book club, to know each other, to foster relationships and networking, and to have that incredible opportunity to meet the 2 authors, because you don't usually get that opportunity, and we're so blessed with Executive Women to have these connections. So please use chat. We will go back and we will make sure by the end of this session you have everything you need to continue to go through that book, so we can have an engaging conversation during the second meetup that we have. So Fran, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rita. And thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that. And to all of you, I want you to know that it's these 2 awesome women who are responsible for this, Barbara and Rita. It wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for them. And I am very, very indebted to them. And they can pay me later. So welcome to what we hope will be an interesting and fun discussion of what experts call humanity's biggest challenge. I'm delighted that Julia was able to with us today. She's coming from to us from New York, and she is a postdoc associate with the Alda Center for Communicating Science and how people communicate about climate change. And maybe she can explain more of that when it's her turn. Julia and I don't remember precisely when this book was born. It may have been when we were talking about the subject, and I raised this rhetorical question that we often do when faced with big problems. I said, I know it's a terrible problem, but what can I do about it? What can I, as an individual, do about it? But as I thought about it, I realized that that wasn't a big problem for me, because I'm a writer. And as a writer, we know that the best way to reach people is to tell stories. And that's what I've tried to do in this book. I created a fictional family with climate-related issues. and how they handle them. And I'm hoping that that helps all of you if you are ever in that position. Let's see. The book's title, Climate Change, is a play on words. And what it really represents is the millions and millions of people who are still bound by old ways of thinking about climate change. The subhead, Breaking the Silence, came from Julia, and I would appreciate it if she would just take a couple minutes and explain why that's so important.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm getting more and more excited because there's so much I want to share with you all, and there's so much I want to hear. And the idea about climate silence is something that is has a long history, and it comes from the theory of the spiral of silence. The spiral of silence is a theory. It was developed by a researcher named Noelle Newman in the 1970s. And she had a very racking question that she asked herself, and that was, how could the Holocaust have happened? How can that happen? And so she dedicated her professional self to answering that question. And now you can go on Google Scholar or just Google and bring up Spiral of Silence and read about it if you'd like. What it basically means is, if we don't talk about something, it becomes normative to not talk about it. And then the silence spirals until nobody feels as though it's acceptable to talk about it. We are inhibited in talking about it just when it is critical to talk about it. So the spiral of silence is, it's a toxic social condition that we are experiencing here in the US and elsewhere when it comes to climate change. Just at this point where we have years, not decades, to act in our own interest, we are not talking about climate change. And so the question that drove me back to school at my old age was, what then? How do we break the silence? How do we create opportunities for people to talk about this so that we can make good shared choices?
Thanks, Jill. Well done. All of you have some understanding of climate change, maybe a little, maybe a lot. But I'd like to read you something that I think kind of tells us where we are right now. It's lines from an editorial that appeared in the Post not long ago. A feverish planet Earth is telling us that it won't be ignored. Mega blazes have incinerated towns and tinder dry forests of the West. Hurricane Sally's catastrophic flooding of Gulf Coast states shows how global warming makes storms dangerously wetter and slower. Massive Antarctic glaciers are breaking free as temperatures rise, threatening over time to raise sea levels 10 feet. Now, I know that's scary, but it is happening now, and that's why I think it's so important that we all talk about it this afternoon. So I'm looking for people who would like to ask me questions, or Julia questions, about the book, about how we wrote it, about climate change itself, and why we decided to put it into book form.
Fran and Julia, I will say Kathy wrote, that's what I loved about this book, is that it told a story of how this issue affects people in different ways. Brilliant. Kathy, do you want to elaborate on that?
Kathy.
Yes, well, it's people come with their own set of beliefs. They have a perspective. You know, these beliefs were ingrained in us, you know, by the time we were age 7, and then all of our experiences. And when people just listen to whatever media outlet they have to be connected to, by the way, I just watched The Social Dilemma. I think it was on Netflix. All these professionals were talking about what they do, how they program social media, so you only get the news that reinforces the belief that you have. And so there are a lot of people out there that are not really getting the actual facts about climate change. And I thought that the way you wrote the book, and different people are affected in different ways. And that's what I loved about it, because, you know, you could talk science all day long to people, but they have these ingrained beliefs. But if you share a story about someone in your family and how that it's affected them, then they can kind of relate it personally to themselves or someone in their family or friends that they know. So that's why I really thought that that's a great way to approach this subject for people who can understand those kinds of things, because it affects them personally. Thank you.
I really appreciate it, because that is one of the challenges, as Julie was describing.
Fran, there's a couple questions. One from Trudy saying, with all the wildfires and hurricanes this year, have you seen more conversations about climate change? So for Julia and Fran.
Well, I'll go first. I think we're finally addressing these terrible problems. Nobody can look at what has happened in California in the last few months and not just cry with despair for all those families and all those homes, and the firemen that were injured. Nobody can look at other, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat tonight, other areas and ask themselves why they can't help a little bit about them. Jewel?
Lisa Trout just asked an interesting question. If everyone didn't see it, Lisa, why don't you restate that?
There we go. Okay. Many people have asked, have a desire to own waterfront property. How long will it be a desirable goal with the rising water levels? Recently, I saw a photo in the Palm Beach Post of flooding along the waterway in Palm Beach.
It's with us now. Anybody who goes to Miami's, pardon the frog in my throat tonight. But as I wrote in the book, maybe you remember the chapter where John realizes that he may be facing a climate problem with the water in his beautiful backyard. And he talks to various people to find out, should he sell? What would it be? What would happen if he didn't sell? And so forth and so on. And you could just feel his anger and his frustration that he'd already lost his wife not long before in a terrible accident. And here he was facing a problem that he knew nothing about. And he admitted that. He said, I don't know anything about this stuff. Who can I talk to? So other people in the book provided him with, Clifford is one of them, people who could tell him about it and help him make his decision.
Julia, Holly is asking, is it possible that COVID is climate related?
It is, yes. It's related on a couple of different levels. And Penny, jump in here. When we encroach on habitats that have not had a lot of human contact prior, and we're very busy doing that, and yet what we don't realize is that when habitats lose biodiversity, animals become stressed, they shed viruses. And this is what happened in China with the COVID-ID pandemic origin. And one of the many threats from climate change is that we will see increasing incidences of zoonotic diseases. And as it sounds, zoonotic diseases just mean animal to human. So we will see additional threats from vector-borne diseases as well. So climate change and health is a very serious issue, and we need trusted messengers to speak up on climate change. And so people in the medical professions are just now learning about the fact that the climate change and human health connection is something that they can take a leadership role on, and I hope that they do. And let me just qualify everything I say here, y'all. I am not a climate scientist. I am a person who studies how we communicate about science.
Jill, have you found anybody who is really leading that effort to find out more about them? About
human health?
Yes.
And yes, there is a cooperative out of Yale and George Mason University, and I'm happy to provide that link in the chat. I'll do that right now.
Great, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, other questions?
I know the book addresses in a very non-confrontational way things to help break the silence. What are the things that you would recommend us all walk around having in our head when we hear people talking, the key things that we should be saying to share what people should be thinking about and doing to break the silence?
You want me to tackle that, Mom?
Please.
Okay, here's the link to the Medical Consortium on Climate and Health. That's a number of medical societies that are engaging. The key to any good communication is that it needs to be audience-centered. So as Kathy very articulately described, human beings are not empty vessels to be filled up by our scientific information. And when it comes to climate change, it's extremely threatening and it's disruptive to our pre-existing worldviews. As a result, people process new information to comport with what they already think and feel. And so while there may be people you will never ever reach when you're trying to communicate about climate change, and these are the people who are on the, the denialist end of the spectrum, there are people in the alarmed section of the spectrum, and the majority of people right now are in the disengaged section, and that's largely because of what we're experiencing in this country. People have, especially people who are living week to week, unfortunately don't have the bandwidth. However, knowing where people are and trying to adjust your communication such that you understand why they would care. And framing has also been thought of as a manipulative way of communicating, but ethical, empathy-based communication is all about why would your audience care? And instead of telling them what they should think or how they should feel or what they should do, my favorite question is, who or what do you love that may be affected by climate change? Let's start the conversation there.
I am interested in going back to the book for a minute. As an author, you always wonder which areas and which people in the story affect people the most. And I'm interested to hear what you might like, the character you might like, or what you learned from a particular passage.
We might want to hold off on that question, Fran, because some of them may not have finished it yet. So if I can put that question on pause, because
sure,
they still have time to read it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think today really we should focus more on, we can talk generically about climate change, but I don't want, for people who didn't get through it just yet, certainly encourage them to make sure they get through it. But if we can hold on that question, is that fair enough?
Sure.
Okay, there are quite a few questions. Comment from Penny, too much data just gets shut out, making it personal is what makes the difference, connecting the dots. And then there's a question directed at Julia from Kathy saying, can you explain to everyone about the 6th mass extinction, the first that is being caused by humans?
I don't really feel like I'm qualified to talk about that. Again, I'm a social scientist. The 6th mass extinction is just generically about how human beings are the predominant driver of ecological change on the planet. And when we talk about the fact that we now live in the Anthropocene, and Kathy, feel free to jump in here too, we are talking about that very fact. There are so many of us now, and we are so mobile. We are using so many resources that we are really, our behavior and our choices are going to determine just whether the biogeographical systems that sustain life in this little zone of climate that we currently enjoy are going to be able to be resilient and stay here, or whether we're going to shift to another state.
Well, I would just add to that, Julia, that I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Earth Overshoot Day. It's where they measure the resources that we're extracting from the planet. And right now, as of 2020, we would need 1.6 Earths to accommodate what we're extracting, consuming from our environment. And so when you think about that, we're already, and I did a graph where it showed the dates, and back in 1970, it was December 29th was the Earth Overshoot Day. So we were only using, we were within a couple of days, right? Now it's August 22nd. As of August 22nd, we've already used all the resources that the planet can regenerate for us. So that's something to consider when we look at our consumption.
And guys, if I could jump in to add to that, let's consider how many resources have not been being used during this pandemic. You know, we have less cars. There's less consumption. We're not, we haven't been out shopping. Hopefully everyone hasn't been on Amazon, and having all of that happen too. So to Kathy's point, it probably would have happened even earlier, except we have slowed down some of our consumption. I really thought that we would have some kind of a climate catastrophe that would be what would stop the world, and to have COVID come, I really thought about it a lot. And I feel that, yes, it is climate related, to Julia's point earlier. And it may be even a better way to go about getting people's attention, because everyone relates to their health, their family's health, their friends' health. So we have such an opportunity right now to connect the dots and, make it personal, let people realize that climate change isn't just like, something that's happening way out there in the future, but it's impacting us right away, whether it was with COVID or not. I mean, greenhouse gas emissions are air pollution. And air pollution it exacerbates a lot of health conditions. And of course, some of our lower income folks, some of our minority or neighbors, they may be the ones that are disproportionately impacted by climate change. So to have all of this coming together at the same time when we're having, I'm going to say, a health provider crisis in the US, is really connecting the dots, is what I think is just so important for all of us to do.
I think you're absolutely right. And we look at the pandemic, of course, with horror, but might we look at it as an opportunity? As you say, we don't do a lot of the things we did before. Few of us drive as much as we did. Has anybody considered doing something like that?
So I'm a member of an organization, Sustainability Director Network, that is for North America. And they've been doing a lot of information gathering for that, as well as universities have been doing it too. So again, connecting the dots and then looking at that equity component. Now more than ever, it is it's just everything is coming to a point. So if we can take advantage, like you said, Fran, and use it to tell those stories and to make it personal, then maybe it will stay with us.
Very important, Penny. We tell people a lot of things about climate change. We tell them that what they can do if they want to do something is volunteer for a candidate who's running for office, support somebody who is actually running for office. And there are other things you could do. You could, sorry, something crossed out here. You can talk about climate change with your family and friends. How many of you do that?
I do that.
Not too many. I'm interested to know what reactions you get. Are people interested in it? Are they dismissive? Are they just not well educated on the subject?
I get a combination. I have a good friend who lives in in California, and he's an older guy. He is probably in his mid-70s, and he and his son have probably done 5 or 6 or 7 bike rides in Europe, in the US, raising money for climate. And I mean, he's totally passionate about it. And then, interestingly enough, I mean, you know, he's a very educated person who's very involved. I know of somebody else who, when I was talking to, it was actually a neighbor here, somebody was talking to, walking around the block and talking about climate change, and the person said, oh, well, we'll just all move to Iowa.
Iowa has a climate too.
Well, Iowa has a climate too, but this person was saying, okay, yeah, but there's no flooding. I mean, well, let's move to Iowa. Not a big deal. I you know, I can't respond to things like that.
Fran, I think a lot of people talk about it at the surface level, but don't take the time enough to really get a keen understanding, or they think it's something that they can't do anything about.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like a cocktail conversation.
How would you encourage them, Rita, to understand those things and get the knowledge they need?
You know, I think you know, I'm big on like preparing a one sheet that has facts that causes people to understand how it affects them personally, their families, their community, their companies, whatever, different angles, so that, you know, this might be the short-term impact, but long-term, so they'll start thinking, I have family members, friend, or my business, or my loved ones, or whatever. What's in it for me, you know, and why should I be concerned? And as you started to say, some of the things a person can do, you know, Stephen Covey has this double circle I love. It's a circle in the middle, says circle of influence, and the outside circle is areas of concern. And, you know, leaders focus on that circle of influence, things they can do something about. And then other people just kind of talk about areas there where I'm worried about global hunger, I'm worried about crime, I'm worried, but they don't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So it's just noise. So I think we have to put it in terms on why they should be concerned. And yes, it does impact them because the information they get is just so tailored to like a short spot on the news or whatever. So that's why I think one of the reasons why I think that the topic you two picked was so important. We have a lot of questions. Let me try to get to some of these here. Lisa's saying, Dr. Jeffrey Morton teaches a class at Usher, Lifelong Learning, about international challenges. He said that climate change is one of the most challenging because it is creating migration and wars, etc. Can you tell us a little more about that?
I think other people know this issue area well too. Yeah, definitely we're seeing already enormous shifts as people are coming north. They can no longer farm in Latin America. I mean, the classic situation that people started talking about decades ago was the Syrian war. Mm-hmm. That was created by climate change. And today we're able to do climate change fingerprinting on not only discrete weather events, but more long-term weather phenomena. So we're able to say this is caused by that, and they're seeing migration being caused by climate change.
Julia, Michelle was asking a question of this. She said, are there foundations that are funding the community dialogues about climate change that we can participate in? There was one referred to in the book. If so, could you share that information?
Penny, do you know of any?
Yeah. Penny, do you happen to know of any foundations that are trying to help communities talk about climate change?
In our community, we don't really have anything that's very structured. Typically, the municipalities have taken the lead on that. There are several that are in a little further south. The Clio Institute in Miami is one that you could certainly follow, and they also have a lot of have been doing a lot of equity work as well. And there's so many things online that you can go to. I would encourage y'all, if you haven't heard about it, to look into Drawdown. This is another really common sense way to make a difference about ways that you, as well as your, your municipal, state, federal leaders could make a difference. And knowledge is power. So really, the more that it's out there, we just have to take the time to look and learn about it. I wish that we had a stronger community-based organization in Palm Beach County. And I'm just going to throw it out there. Who knows? Executive women might be the lead there.
What would you like to see?
Maybe something that we should all consider doing together and starting.
I mean, that was kind of part of my question, was if there is a gap of that information, how can we, fill that gap? You have the Everglades Foundation here. You have a lot of rather large private foundations here in town. Not to be determined tonight, but maybe between now and our next meeting, if we do a little more research on it, maybe it's something we can, circle back on some ideas of what might be some next steps individually and then maybe collectively as executive women.
And I would just throw it out there as well that it's an opportunity for different nonprofits and groups to get together. I mean, when I think about the health impacts, is the Quantum Foundation someone that could help? And the Community Foundation, it's not that none of these groups are, it's not that they're not doing anything or not thinking about it, but there's no strong organization. And listen, everyone doesn't want to listen to a government person talk, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the leaders in the community. It's the people that you respect as business people and other leaders, whether it's faith-based or, volunteers or business. That's what we really need in our county, is to get that leadership talking about it. And everyone will follow.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think executive women should potentially take this maybe to the next step and use this to be the driving force to bring the parties together and have this kind of dialogue, write yes or no in the chat.
How many times can we write it?
What's that?
How many times can we write it?
So write yes or no in the chat. I mean, I think what Penny said is very strong. I think, I see yes, we can do it. Yes. I would love it. Yes, I would, I think, Holly, I know you're here on the call. This might be the next best thing, is to bring that ecosystem of people who work in this field, locally or otherwise, and whether this book could be used as the dialogue to get it going, and to bring, whether it's the Everglades Foundation, Eric Kelly at Quantum, and so on, to talk about what do we do here in Palm Beach County? How can we be a model? What do people need to know? That would be kind of a very, very cool thing to do. Up front when I was introducing Fran and Freddie Jefferson.
Freddie Jefferson.
Fran and Freddie worked at the Post, both brilliant. And I still remember the race relations program they did. Barbara's smiling, I could see. It was so impactful because executive women, oftentimes the programs were topical, sometimes challenging to talk about, but they needed to be talked about.
Yes.
They were crucial conversations. And that program, Freddie was African-American. She passed away, unfortunately. But she and Fran hit the hard stuff. And it was amazing. And I still think about that. And that had to been about 35 years ago when that conversation took place. Maybe this is the time to be the ones to be on the leading edge of, again, pulling this ecosystem of people together to have this dialogue.
I think that's excellent suggestion. And Julia posted something interesting that ties into this about how climate change is affecting women. Julia, would you elaborate on that?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm happy to, really happy to. There's greater attention given now to intersectionality, which is the fact that if somebody is standing in the middle of a crossroads, they have certain risks that they have to contend with. If you are a woman and you have to contend with those risks, there's an intersection there. You have traffic coming at you in different ways. We've seen this with the Black Lives Matter movement, saying, I'm a Black woman. I have traffic coming at me in many, many ways. And this is just a metaphor for saying that people are impacted differently in different threat scenarios. In developing countries, women are the ones who do the farming. Women are the ones who go get the water. Women are the ones, girls are child brides are more frequent now because of climate change. The social science research that's out there shows that women are better leaders on climate change. They understand the risks better. Even here in the United States, there's a paper out there called Cool Dudes, and it's by a guy named Aaron McCrite. He's at Michigan State. He studies how people communicate about climate change. Men don't perceive risk the same way. Women are better advocates on climate change. Women are more community oriented, and they take initiative to build those communication networks. I could talk about this for a long time. So women are inordinately impacted, and that is not just true for women, but climate change is a justice issue. And framing climate change as something that is all about inequities really brings to light the fact that inequities cause climate change. And that's a different way of understanding it that can help people engage these people who are worried about childcare next week. Mm-hmm. It makes a big difference. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you.
Conversation I had at Executive Women with Freddie Jefferson many years ago was personal. I was able, because she was a friend, I was able to ask her about racial things and what she thought about what bothered, blah, blah, blah. It's possible to do that in other subjects too. If we could get people who would more or less debate on a stage, or maybe just, nicely talk about it, but have different points of view, and there were people who were fairly well known in the community, might be able to start something.
It's a great idea.
Guys, I want to just share like a little example when we're talking about inequities. Especially during hurricane season, you hear people talk about, oh, you need to get your hurricane kit together, right? And that just makes sense. But if you're trying to figure out what your next meal is, you're trying to get food on the table, not your hurricane kit together, right? And it's the same thing, when we are talking about broader climate change issues. We have to, bring everybody together. And, as Fran and Julia has said, it's where they're coming from and really hear, because we don't, I know I don't know, and I try and really listen, but just something as simple as, us taking for granted, oh, a hurricane kit. Well, no, it's food on the table. It's, of course, can you move because the air pollution is so bad that it's causing asthma? No, you can't move out of that area. All of these things just get exacerbated, and women, as you were saying, totally are the ones that are, regardless of race or ethnicity, are the ones that are most impacted. And so I think we're the ones that can do the most about it.
Sometimes I think we are looking at migration and climate problems and we don't realize that that's what they are. For example, Julia mentioned the migration. I think of all the boys usually who have, taken boats across dangerous rivers with tiny children because of a better life. They can't grow their crops anymore. Their cows have died. They have to go somewhere. And most people don't realize that this is just a life or death position for them. So if we could put a little more personalization into that somehow, I think it would be useful. And Penny, that was what I was thinking when you were talking, because the personal is really what's so important. And it takes somebody willing to ask the questions that maybe they don't want to hear,
Yes.
but that will, make the conversation much more interesting and tell people a lot more about the subject.
Yeah.
If we could get some people like that, I think that would be, I guess we'd have to do it, virtually, but that's okay.
Maybe if you know some people that should potentially be asked to have a seat at that table,
Yeah.
you can put them in the chat. It would
Yes.
be great, because I think, Holly, you're recording this, so you should have the chat transcription when it's over.
Yes.
So that would be, if you all have, I saw a couple of websites and YouTubes that if you know some organizations locally or otherwise that potentially should be considered, nothing etched in stone at this point, but I think it's a perfect opportunity to take that.
Thinking ahead, the role of children and the role of schools, and Lisa is very attuned to the educational system in Palm Beach County. What role are children going to be playing? What role are educators going to be playing? Which role should they be playing?
Actually, children who are articulate enough would be the wonderful people to talk about climate change, because it's their future and they care about it. And we've seen so many examples of young women and men who care so much about this, and they've made an impact. Very hard to do, but they have made an impact.
I remember when my son was in grade school and he had to watch Al Gore's movie. He came home and said, "Mom, we need to move. Our house is going to sink because Florida's going underwater." So, I mean, they started, he's 30, and this was at St. Michael's. So that was 1st through 8th grade. So these kids, fortunately, this next generation, the millennials and beyond, which are the largest population, they are taught more, they're taught social responsibility and diversity and a lot of topics that we weren't taught. So very excited about this. It's very cool.
But that's the rough part, is that I know that when I was in grade school back way when in the 60s, we had Earth Day and we talked about don't be a litter bug and give a hoot, don't pollute. We've been talking about the environment for a very long time, and what's really been accomplished.
It goes back to
that's why we haven't brought it home to people.
Yeah.
We have that personal.
Yeah, it goes back to what Fran said, is make sure, like, what can we do? So it's not only create the awareness, but create a call to action.
Yes.
People to do something.
And you have to be really careful that, knowing which blue or yellow bin to put your recycling in. It's not one and done, check the box. That is not going to save us, from climate change. And I think that there are a few things that have been really pushed out there. So people think, oh, don't use a water bottle, plastic water bottle or whatever, but it's holistically, we've got to look at the urgency, sort of to your point. Yes, in the 70s, I remember the first Earth Day, and there hasn't been a sense of urgency. And that's what we have to create.
And really, this is an opportunity to do it. I mean, California is burning down.
Yeah.
The Gulf states are in just such terrible peril. And it's happening in other places, fortunately not ours. But it's an opportunity to take these gross examples and say, this is not just a one-time thing. This is what is happening because of changes in the climate.
Yeah.
If Hurricane Dorian had zigged instead of zagged, we would have been on that list
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
it wouldn't just
exactly.
be talking about the Gulf Coast.
Yes.
So just by fate, grace, not sure.
Let me just pipe in here because it's 6:27. I want to make sure we respect your time. We can talk about this a long time. What a great dialogue, and what an honor to have Fran and Julia here. This is I don't know about you, I'm just real excited about the energy, the potential for taking it further. So I know by 10:19 everybody's supposed to have the whole book read. Let me turn it over to Barbara for some administrative things you need to do between now and then, and so we can respect your time and end on time.
Thank you, Rita. I will be sending out an email to everybody with the main thrust of it will be to understand what other questions, what are the things that you want to be talking about, and what are the questions. We would love to have as many questions as possible. And Fran and Julia have been very extraordinarily generous by saying that they will respond. So this is like, you know, keeping this going. We won't be giving you thousands of questions, Julia.
I was just going to say, nobody told me that.
Your mother,
Very, very good reason.
If I can pipe in here, the questions also are related to the book and the characters. And so they're twofold. One is because it's a book club, you know how it is when you read a book and you go, man, I wonder what the author was thinking.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask them that question. So part of the time will be spent on that. So as you go through it, write down those questions like, what were you thinking when you did this character, whatever. So we can have fun with that. But then to Barbara's point, then we'll talk about, okay, so now let's talk about the meaty thing. And maybe we can do a little homework between now and then.
Absolutely.
And find out maybe what this might look like.
Yes. So everyone will be getting an email from me either later this week or beginning of next week. And Rita's suggestion is an excellent one. As you're reading the book, have note paper next to you and write out all the questions that you have. And based upon the dialogue today, the additional questions and insights. And I think it's been very exciting that we've raised the idea of not just, you know, so appreciating Julia and Fran for what they have put together for us, but also maybe creating something that can move forward that makes our community better. So look for that. And Holly, I want to thank you again. Holly has been an excellent support, been there every step of the way. And so I just want to thank everybody. I hope you had enlightening, I hope you felt enlightened today, and look forward to getting all your comments. Our next meeting will be on the 19th. That one will be an hour and a half. And great to see all of you. Last request, stay healthy, okay?
Thank you.
And thanks,
Thanks, Rita.
Thanks for the comments. Thanks, everyone. This was great energy, excellent. Oh my gosh, great, wonderful comments in the chat.
Yes.
Well done.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.